The PSBA is committed to diversity, inclusion, and equity work. As an organization based in Tacoma, Washington, we acknowledge the Puyallup tribe and invite you to visit the official website of the Puyallup and listen to their land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Puyallup tribe. The Puyallup people have lived on and stewarded these lands since the beginning of time and continue to do so today. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step toward true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of the land and beyond.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. And those of you who will watch the recording, you're in for a treat. As the new coordinator of these talks, it's been a real gift to meet new artists and reconnect with old friends, of which Amanda is one of them. We met more than 40 years ago at a paper and book intensive, and where she was using paper to make her own paper to make a book with. It really was kind of love at first sight. Amanda's authenticity and her open nature was only paralleled by the beauty of her paper. Um, on her website, you will see that she is kind of a who's who in international paper making. She experienced making paper as an undergraduate and then did a graduate degree using paper in her sculpture. She has continuously been an educator through writing and publishing and traveling to teach and exhibit her work in the US and abroad. Her travels to Asia, in particular, beginning in Japan and Korea, led to an invitation at Tsinghua University in Beijing, where she established a hand papermaking studio in the book design department, and she goes there from time to time. The Minnesota Center for the Book Arts is in Minneapolis, where Amanda has lived, and it is a vibrant working book center that has artists in residencies and classes and amazing exhibits. She was its first artist in residence and its first artistic director. She also worked at Hand Paper Making, which is a biannual magazine, which she co-founded and published with Michael Durbin. She began Cave Paper in the 80s and officially co-ran it with Bridget O'Malley for 13 years. She was part of Cave Paper from 1994 to 2020. And one of the extraordinary things that you'll see is that in 1990, their production was 400 sheets of paper per year. And in 2019, it was 10,000 sheets of paper. I've known her all this time and I did not know this. Cave moved to Tucson when we lived there. And so I got to visit with Zoe and Amanda when Amanda helped Zoe set up that first studio. And now she's handed the reins to Zoe, and Amanda is a full-time artist making books under the name HMP Editions. Her connection with the materials and the process is really wonderful. The ancient matrix, and this is on her website, but I really wanted to read this part. The ancient matrix of handmade paper fits well with the spiritual, holistic, historic, and natural ideas that inspire Amanda's art. Her intention is to create a visual example of the interrelationship between environment in both material and spiritual world. During her dialogue with these materials, she cooks, beats, colors, molds, presses, and dries what started as a plant. Depending on how the fiber is prepared, it can look fragile and translucent as skin. I have some of those papers. It can look like expensive leather or metal. The plants and natural dyes are a mixture of fiber, sun, soil, and rain. While she processes the materials, there is an exchange of ki, which with the materials. She, with the materials, her spirit and heart get infused into the work. I believe that because of the process involved with hand paper making. Making art with paper seems more about noticing than manipulating. Reflection, nearness, care, and love are found in slowness. Slowness is where we are renewed, where we sense ourselves in the world and find the boundaries of our own existence. I continue to love and use Amanda's paper primarily as book covers. When she threatened retirement several years ago, I bought a stash for edition projects, and I'm really delighted to have Amanda with us for one of these color-focused lunchtime conversations.
Wow, thank you very much. I think we both admire each other quite a bit, Suzanne and I. So it's nice to have that mutual admiration. Someone say such nice things about you when you feel that way about them. So thank you. And thank you for Book Artists for being here and inviting me and getting me to think about this in a formal way. I have been carrying you with me for months now. I had a deliciously vague sort of task. I mean, she just said color and whatever I want to do. And I taught color theory for a really long time at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. But this is not going to be an academic talk. Um, it's going to be more about how I see color. My reputation is as a hand paper maker and an artist who uses handmade paper. And there are hundreds of artists whose work I would love to share, but I am aware of copyright issues. So everything here, either I took the photo or have permission to use the photo or they're in the public domain. There is a lot of beauty in the natural colors of the fibers themselves. But let's talk about applying color. Using natural dyes and pigments on handmade paper for decades has affected how I see the world. Strong, opaque, usually dark colors, suitable for book covers, are what I spent my adult life making and then selling to artists. These are samples of paper I used to make. To immerse the paper into watery dyes, one must first start with a fiber that has good wet strength. Belgium flax fiber is beaten 2 to 4 hours in a Hollander type machine. And this fiber is expensive, but it works well. After sheet forming and pressing, I put them in spurs of 4 or 5. That's what you see in the upper right corner. So those are packs of paper that will peel apart. You can see in the center, we're peeling them apart when they dry. Drying paper this way adds strength and texture. People have been working with indigo for thousands of years. It continues to be a popular color. Because I was in an unheated studio, I had to get used to using synthetic indigo. Natural indigo is extracted from plants, and there are many books on this process, which includes indigo's history. Indigo lends itself to being dipped and layered. Ah, blue. 2 images of paper drying after being treated with indigo. On the left is 1 dip into the indigo vat, and on the right is 2 dips. I make it sound so simple, but indigo is tricky. The indigo paste has been dissolved in a small amount of lye. You create an oxygen-starved vat by adding thiox to the water. The ideal vat is when you dip it in and you lift it up, the paper is green, and then when it hits the air, it turns blue. And that's what you see in the lower right. You can see how it's still kind of greenish, in a few seconds, that will have turned blue. Well, it's not really simply how many dips. There are many variables. Two controllable ones are the temperature of the vat and how spent the vat is. Even seasonal differences in tap water produce different shades of blue. Two new papers I am making with indigo are the upper right indigo dripped on green, and then these red mountains, they're layers of indigo on red pigmented paper. And you can see there, these are the purchased pigments that are made specifically for paper. They're already dispersed in water. There are endless possibilities to combine indigo with other colors. This is indigo and walnut together. Making indigo is actually, walnut, excuse me, making walnut is actually easy. And it's how walnut stain for wood used to be made. The part of the black walnut that's used is when it's on the tree, it's that green, knobby looking stuff. But once it falls to the ground and it's been sitting around for a while, it turns brown. So it's that outer husk that we use. So we don't use the nut or the shell, but we use that outer husk. And that's just soaked overnight in water. And then I use like 1/3 walnuts husks to 2/3 water, and then cooked for 20 minutes and strained, and then either use a paint roller or brush it onto paper. And it's really looks better if you let the paper dry overnight and do multiple layers. On the right, you can see I'm brushing walnut onto indigo dyed paper on the right. And on the left, this I did just for teaching purposes. So the very top of that sheet on the left is the natural color of the flax. And then the layer below that is one dip of indigo. And then the middle is 2 dips of indigo. And then the very bottom is the walnut stain over the indigo. And then if you look very carefully, you can see a line down the center. So then I've gelatin sized half that sheet of paper. So you can see that the gelatin size slightly darkens the paper. The top image here is the night sky full of stars, and the bottom is pitch black, which is indigo and walnut dyed flax. For this sheet, mica has been added with gelatin size. Sometimes the mica reflects the light, and sometimes you can see through it. On the right is one of my new papers called Black Ice, which was named before the occupation of our city by Border Patrol. In the center is an actual photo of black ice in January. But on the left, you can see I have gelatin sized the paper, and then I submerge it into this, in this case, it's black pigment, and crumple it. And then you have to rinse it very carefully. And then you will get a sheet of paper like you see on the far right. So, but prior to doing that, you need to gelatin size the paper. So I use 1 cup of photo grade gelatin to 5 liters of water. And this is the traditional process, but you could also just use a brush or a paint roller and put it right on the paper. Heated gelatin is on the table in a photo tray. The paper is put in 1 sheet at a time, one on top of the other. After 10 sheets, the pack is lifted up. 2 sticks really help with this part. The pack is put between felts and boards and then pressed. The right pressure is standing on the board. Each paper is hung individually to dry. So in the center is an image of that same technique done with walnut dye. And that paper is named O'Malley Crackle after my former business partner. And you can buy that from Cave Paper located in Tucson, Arizona. And then these are two collages that I've made on either side. On the left is Care and Purpose. On the right is Winter. Almost all the papers are gelatin sized except persimmon. This screen is called Persimmon Tree. There's a detail on the upper right which shows the light coming through. The lower right are green persimmons. This unripe fruit is full of tannin and naturally water resistant. The Japanese, before plastic, used to make raincoats out of it. So that's how water resistant it is and why you don't need to size that paper. Squeezing unripe persimmon juice and then aging it 2 to 4 years is how kakashibu, which is what it's called, is made. Now, I've always wanted to have a persimmon tree, but it cannot be grown in cold climates. So I buy a freeze-dried powder from Japan, rehydrate it, and then brush that onto paper. I particularly like the new color that's created, and you can see that in the middle. So you've got the persimmon on the bottom and the indigo on the top, and where they meet or where they overlap is a new color. And I cannot help talking about just some basics about the philosophy of yin and yang. The relationship between yin and yang is dynamic and constantly changing. Yin may even change into yang, or vice versa. The word for positive does not equal good, and the word for negative does not equal bad. Yang is the positive force, representing things like masculinity, warmth, action, hardness, dryness, brilliancy, firmness, the essence of fire and light, the solid base of a hill, the source of a river. While yin is the negative principle, representing things like femininity, coolness, humidity, softness, darkness, mystery, secrecy, turbidity, inaction, the essence of shadow and of water, the shady side of a hill, the mouth of a river. Yin-yang theory says everything that exists in nature can be classified as either yin or yang, but it is rare to find anything that is pure yin or pure yang. This is a photo of the northern lights, which sometimes is seen in Minnesota. Yin would be the sky, and yang would be the lights, and we must have both. For me, working with color is not only about using that specific color, but about color relationships and working with light. So this is called Sky on Lake. This is with the light hitting it, and this is with the light coming through it. So you can see light is an important factor in how the color changes. Sometimes I count on natural light or use actual lights, as in this collaborative installation. To make the hanging panels, wire was sandwiched between two large sheets of paper when the sheets were wet. Because of the way the fiber was processed, the paper shrunk while it dried, giving it dimension. The viewer is encouraged to walk into the work, and at its center is a watermark by Bridget O'Malley. A watermark appears to be a plain sheet of paper, but when backlit, the image is revealed. It's easier seen in the image in the upper right than in this middle panel, but you can see it both places. The interior view of Aboriginal Parthenon, a sculpture I made with funds provided by the Jerome Foundation, is on display at Franconia Sculpture Park. This fiber is sheet formed in the Japanese tradition, and it's a great example of how the translucency of the paper creates color with light. the exterior view of Aboriginal Parthenon. The sculpture park wanted this outdoor work for up at least 2 years, against my principles, but the handmade paper was coated with fiberglass. Bird's eye view and exterior view of Dome, a collaboration with James Kleiner. From the outside, the colors seem opaque, but if you peer into the dome, you can see that the daylight makes them translucent. People who stepped into the interior of Dome felt bathed in warm light. The sunlight not only makes the color vibrant, but also brings out the texture inherent in the handmade paper. I like to say the paper holds the light. Glass beads do this also. Equally intriguing to me as sunlight is what moonlight does to color. Here are 2 collages I made in 2025, inspired by moonlight. Work on the left is a stack of 4 sheets of paper, each one progressively smaller. The lowest one is pitch dark. I explained how I make that with walnut and indigo earlier. Next one is a layer of thin white, the moon's echo. Then on top of that, a consciously uneven sheet of indigo and walnut dyed paper with a letterpress printed plant. Intellectually, we know a plant is a certain color, but moonlight can make things ghostly or shiny. Last part of that sandwich in the upper left depicts a dreamy image of the phases of the moon. That's made by coating the paper's surface with cyanotype. Cyanotype it's like a chemical, and you can block out certain areas. So I put a piece of mylar that had the moon's waxing and waning on it, and then I exposed it to sunlight. On the right, it's called wet, and I put that in to show how you can overlay thin sheets of paper. So the thin blue sheet on top of the letterpress printed leaves are meant to be half seen and slightly seductive. Stephanie Westbridge, Mary Lynn Nutting, and I descended on Claire Van Vliet's Vermont studio for several weeks, and 90 copies made it as part of this Janus Press edition. The text was written by Barry Lopez and letterpress printed by Claire Van Vliet. Claire cut the indigo paper into mountain shapes and embedded into wet Kozo base sheet. Mary Lynn Nutting made the sky with thin washes of overlapping pigmented blue and pink abaca. Gampi fiber that had purposely been left long was carefully poured to convey fog. Gampi was also used for this edition, both as the base sheet and as a thin wash to function as glue and to give the appearance of a quilt aging. The text by Margaret Kaufman mentions how quilts are more beautiful as they age. Old Quilts was co-published by the Janus Press and the Minnesota Center for Book Arts. And it was kind of like the tradition of old quilts or quilting in general. Many people worked on this. So I wanted to I can't even name how many people worked on this, but I wanted to just acknowledge that. While the off-white Gampi base sheet was still wet, the dry, unsized, pre-cut blue, black, and red iron oxide papers were placed. Next, the pre-cut letterpress printed poem and purchased stenciled white papers were placed. We were able to use 14 papers to make over 30 shapes and multiple colors. To lead you through it, I'll just ask you to look at this one square in the upper, like that blue square. I think if you just follow that, you can see what's going on. So in the corner is a black triangle. Because of how thin the blue is when it's on top of the black, 2 new triangles are created within the blue square. Then this same blue square is under the wavy upper left triangle, making an additional triangle. So from the bottom to the top, the sandwich for that corner goes off-white base sheet, large black triangle, blue square, wavy rectangle, striped square in center. So translucency not only created new colors, but new shapes. This is an edition of 150 copies. Rainbows are the epitome of translucency and an amazing refraction of light through rain. And that's a rainbow on the left, and that's just an oil drip on the sidewalk. In today's culture, the rainbow has become a symbol for the LGBT community to represent equality for all. For many cultures throughout time, it has been a symbol for hope and promise. This screen is called All Are Welcome Here, and this is an image of it lit from behind. Now here's an image of it lit from the front. Here's the other side lit from the front. And here's that original image. So you can really get a lot of different ways of looking at the same work depending on the light. For some Buddhists, the rainbow symbolizes the highest attainment of enlightenment. Each color is associated with a different chakra, red being root, safety, and strength, orange, sacral, teamwork, connections, yellow, solar plexus, confidence, self-esteem, green, heart, emotional intelligence, blue, throat and communication, indigo, third eye, planning, goal setting, and violet is the crown or higher vision. Buddhism is not considered a religion, but a way of life. And many people I met in Asia practice both Buddhism and traditional Chinese medicine. This is a detail of a collage. Let me just show you the overall collage, and then I'll go back to the detail. I am fascinated by traditional Chinese medicine theories, and am just beginning to understand their relationship to nature. Fire, water, earth, metal, and wood are mutually interdependent and are in a dynamic balance with each other. Wood, like a tree, would grow with water. You feed fire with wood, and after the fire is spent, the carbon has generated earth, and earth bears metal. So, how are they all working together? Similar to yin-yang theory, the 5-element theory is fundamental to traditional Chinese medicine. This is a detail of fire, and this is the overall collage. Drawing, painting, suminagashi, indigo, inclusions in paper, whatever works to convey my ideas is what I use. So besides the elements generating one another, they also restrict one another. So fire restricts water. The red circle is fire, and the blue circle is water, and they are corded with black. In turn, water, blue circle, is corded to earth with a yellow cord because water destabilizes earth, which is the earth is the green-brown circle. A light green cord connects earth to the top circle, which is wood. Because it can rot wood, wood is corded to metal, which it can dull, like an axe blade. Metal corded to fire because fire can melt or destabilize metal. Air is the blue swishing all around. It contains contagions, or what we call germs. Traditional Chinese medicine believes that colors and elements are associated with a person's complexion. The most obvious being fire, associated with a red complexion, and wood, a greenish complexion. Water is dark, metal is pale, and earth is yellow. Besides disease coming from the outside to enter the body, it can be generated from within. Traditional Chinese medicine finds that internal emotions can create imbalance or disease. Anger, overexcitement, pensiveness, which is overthinking, worry, sadness or depression, fear, and even shock will attack different organs. It is urgent to pay attention to our inner environment because that affects how we treat our world. It is humans' attitude, then our behavior, that has brought on things like wars and severe climate change. Global balance is possible, but I believe it must start on an individual level. 3 works from left to right: threat, power, regeneration. These are part of my Vanishing Flora series. Threat includes both woodblock and letterpress printing of disappearing flora. In the center, power, you can see what happens when fire has been unrestricted. Regeneration depicts a balanced cycle. 5-element sculpture, as shown in Beijing, each of the 5 elements are joined at the top, then cascade down and end with a paper bowl. These colors have associations in Chinese medicine: fire, red; water, black; earth, yellow, and earth is really yellow and light green, and metal is white. Wood is brown and dark green. They're often different, as these traditional ideas with color are often different from how modern Chinese feel that I spoke with about color. The most striking contrast I've observed in the different way modern Americans and modern Chinese view color is in the colors red and white. Non-artists and artists alike I spoke with in China associate the color red with celebration, and often red is worn in weddings by the bride. The doorway in China. This is Yangtze University, which is a philosophy school in Shanghai. In China, white is associated with mourning, but not in a negative way, because many people believe that death means rebirth. Even so, brides in China rarely wear white. In the West, white has also been associated not only with brides and purity and that kind of thing, but with critical whiteness theory. This theory is about often granting white people unacknowledged social advantages because they are Caucasian. Is white a color? Light physics defines white as the sum of all colors, but painters call it the absence of color. Paper makers probably make more white paper than any other color. In 2017, I hosted Lu Jingren and his family in the United States for a month, and we discussed making handmade path. It took until 2023 to fully realize this edition of 350 copies. The invitation here, made on white paper, is one to participate, and it was mailed to 100 people. We chose people whose paths we had crossed. 57 people responded. To make the white covers and clamshell tray edges, Chinese and English text was printed with oil-based ink on cotton linter. The Chinese text is the character Tao, and the English text is about life, death, and rebirth. Once dry, the printed text is beaten in a hollander and added to cotton rag. If you are careful, letters and Chinese characters will stay whole. I printed the covers from a polymer plate from Lu's calligraphy. His calligraphy depicts a hand growing out of a heart. 57 people responded to these questions. How did you begin your practice? Why do you still make paper and books? What is the difference for you reading on a digital device or in a book? In what way do you understand the 5 senses of a book? Share with us some of your moments, either breakthroughs or breakdowns in your work. What is your next dream project? They were asked to respond using their handwriting. Their letters were photographed and sections of the letters were translated and appear on the flaps in both English and Chinese. Radha Penley splits her time between Norway and India. Wang Yongsong from Taipei. Many people wrote on paper they had made. This is from the late Helmut Becker from Canada. Campbell Logan did the Smythe sewing and clamshell boxes, and Bolger did the printing. It was all done in Minneapolis. Upper right collage called Silent Strength, lower right collage called Collective Paths. Along with any wisdom you have gathered about colors, possibilities with natural lights, with natural dyes, light, and translucency, I encourage everyone to jump in. You will develop talented hands and intelligence from engaging all of your senses, especially sight and touch, but all of the senses. Use your tongue to check to see if the paper is sized. Smell the age of the pulp. Listen to the rattle of the paper. I would like to add that this takes perseverance, hard work, and visual literacy. Most importantly, being an artist takes a core belief that you can and that even you must. The paper community has always been generous with sharing, and I was able to do a lot of studio work with about 120 interns. That phase of my life is over, but I still do some hands-on workshops. In 2026, I have taken on 2 summer workshops, June in Minneapolis and August in Montana. Maybe I will meet you there. I see someone said, what's photogelatin? So there's photo grade gelatin and there's food grade gelatin. Food grade is a little more expensive, but you can get it in bulk at the co-ops. It's the same stuff as you buy Knox gelatin at the grocery store, but then you have to open all those little packages and, why do that? Because you're using several cups at a time. So both are fine, food grade and photo grade. They work fine. And gelatin is the traditional sizing that was used back in Europe in, I don't know, 1800s, 1700s, something like that. So those papers that were coated with gelatin lasted a lot longer than the later papers that were made where they used rosin and alum for sizing. The rosin alum sized papers became yellow and brittle, but the gelatin sized papers last a long time, and the gelatin, was think about horse hoofs, right? Horse hoofs are tough, right? So, I mean, gelatin is amazing. I could talk about gelatin for a long time. I'll stop.
Okay. Jessie asks, what are the 5 senses she defines for books?
So sights, all the, sight, touch, smell, hearing, the same, just as you look at a book, what are, I mean, obviously you're probably not eating a book, but there may be something, like maybe you gnaw on your pencil while you're reading. I don't know, but
The Aboriginal Parthenon, what is the sculpture park and is it still installed, Amanda?
the sculpture park is very much alive and happening, but they only have things up for 2 years, so it's not installed anymore.
Wow. And where is it?
It's outside of the Twin Cities. It's in
Okay.
Franconia or Schaefer, Minnesota. And it's very interesting. They try to do, non-traditional kind of things there.
Hmm. Yeah. So we can't see it anymore. What do you know what happened to the all the parts?
Well, you can knock on it like you can knock on fiberglass. I mean, it was very waterproof, so the elements didn't take it in that way. But
Right.
there are very high winds in the winter, so I can imagine. I wanted to kind of go out and see how it changed over time, but I
Yeah.
never did, even though it's only a couple hours to go there.
What do they do with the sculptures after that 2-year time period? Do you
I think
know?
they just, another piece comes on top of that, it's a big place, but you have to pick your site. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think of my work more like theater. It's up for a certain amount of time and then it's over.
Mhm.
So the handmade paper, I really think about longevity and about archivalness and being careful. But in terms of the sculpture, it's just there for a little while and then it's over. And I'm good with that.
Yeah. Was the bottom metal, those
Yeah,
weaving?
so what I did is I used rebarb, which I could hand bend pretty easily. And
Oh.
then I dug 12 holes in, and then I cast concrete right on site so the rebarb could go into that. And then I welded the circle at the top, so all the rebarb came to the top. So I had this sort of inverted basket shape. And then I
Mhm.
purchased a lot of lath, and then I wove the lath in between so that it was really like a basket.
Mhm. Mhm. So the weavings were wood.
Wood slats, very
Ah,
thin wood slats that I could
okay.
purchase at the hardware store.
Okay. Yeah, that was fascinating. And then the dome-like pieces, the pieces of handmade paper looked huge. Were
Well,
they?
we cast those so that actually originally we put the dome together and we tried to cast the entire kind of Bucky Fuller dome as one piece, but it was just too unwieldy. So we took it apart again and we cast two or three of the triangles by themselves. And then we put them back together again. So they were actually, if you looked closely at it, they weren't sheets of paper that were adhered afterwards. They were actually, um, I use a method that I learned from my mentor, Winifred Lutz, which she uses an open weave muslin cloth, which if you can do, it's called a one-shot deal because basically the armature is left inside. So you can pull this open weave muslin around a shape and then you pour the slurry of Kozo and Formation Aid in and you shush it around, actual official term, shush it around. And then when it's dry, you peel the cloth off. But the armature and what's beautiful about it is that it's like you have a body and you have bones and you have organs and you have skin and there's not any big air pockets, they're all the bones are working with everything. So the armature in that case, the fiber goes in and out and around the armature. So there's a connection of the fiber to the armature, which is very integrated, which would not happen if you had dry sheets and you just glued them onto a form. So
Mhm.
that's the beauty of casting with paper.
Mhm. Wow. Um, and when you layer your papers of translucent, I've worked with very translucent sheets from different paper makers, and my experience is that they're tremendously hygroscopic. And so introducing moisture to them makes them, even when I do lettering on them, makes them really change shape. But how do you layer the thin and the more dense papers? Are they
Well,
attached to one another?
dense is usually at the bottom.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I like the brush strokes kind of, so sometimes I'll use like if it's so thin that you can see the glue, I try to think about that when I'm gluing it, you
Mhm.
know. Um, but a lot of times you don't need glue. You can just put a little bit of, because it's so light. The thin papers are so light. And I know what you mean about getting the papers wet. So I showed all that stuff with dipping into the indigo vat and all that. I would not try that with really, really thin translucent papers.
Mhm.
But I can put the color right into the beater while it's beating. So that's how I got that purple one, is I was actually
Right,
the
right.
not trying to, a lot of what I used to do when I sold paper was I put the color on the surface of the paper,
Mhm.
but you can obviously you can color it in the beater. And if it's beaten in there, you're not getting, after the paper's dry, you're not getting it wet again with the color.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. So you use a glue rather than a paste or something like that holds
Well,
it on.
with the two Claire Van Vliet collaborations, we used we after we laid down all the paper, instead of using glue, we actually used thin washes of fiber over it to glue it down because we wanted it to look more aged. We wanted it to look kind of faded in parts, but not the whole thing faded. So
Mhm.
not only did it act as glue, but it also um, made that look a little more faded
Hmm.
because
And it's called Fibern,
Gampi. It could be Kozo, it could be Gampi, it could be
but
Abaca. Probably.
the washes that you put over it.
Yeah, it's when I call them washes because there's hardly any fiber in there. It's like so thin, like it's not even a sheet of paper. It's just like a slurry that is hardly got any fiber in it.
Hmm.
And you
Hmm.
just, if you add formation aid, you just kind of pour a cup of it on top and it kind of glues everything down.
Huh. Yeah.
And then you don't have to use glue.
Yeah. And you answered the question about the apprentices because I knew that a lot of people had been were apprentices there. And what was the figure you said?
120.
120. And how long did they tend to
So we
stay?
had a requirement that they had to come for at least 3 weeks. If they were full-time, 3 weeks. Most of the people lived in the Twin Cities, and so they could come once a week, which was actually kind of better because then they had time in between to like absorb it. The
Mhm.
people that came for like 3 weeks solid from out of town or more, um, we might be spending that 3 weeks just making one kind of paper, and that's just what the studio had to do at that point. So I
Mhm.
felt like, I mean, they didn't seem to mind, but I felt, I was always trying to like, well, let me show you how to do this and let me show you how to, like they weren't getting the full scope of things, but
And did they come to you with some training
no,
beforehand?
no.
Oh.
No, not at all. We had a few people, some of our best interns were ones that were in like the North Bennett Street School, or they were doing something else like bookbinding, or they were doing letterpress printing, and they just we gave them an hourly wage in everything except money. So we gave them credit towards paper. So just about every intern left with a huge stack of handmade paper. So
Oh.
they not only learned whatever we learned, they also got product. And so that, that, and many of them got credit through school. They, some people even got paid from the school, like Grinnell students got paid from Grinnell. So it kind of it was word of mouth, like word would get out that this is a good one. You should go to that one, and then and we had to kind of limit how many people would come. So
Mhm. Yeah. That's a whole different role, kind of expanding the awareness by being part of the team making paper. You know, it's a
Yeah, I mean, I just think that there shouldn't be any trade secrets, and if anyone's crazy enough to become a paper maker, I'd like to support that. Every single person, they go, God, you charge so much for your paper. Then by the time they leave, they're like, you don't charge enough for your paper. So it's always good to get that kind of awareness in there.
yeah, absolutely.
Does anyone have any more questions? Any comments, observations, complaints, jokes?
Things that you use cave paper for?
Yeah.
Well, most people like how strong they are and how durable and that they're dark so they don't show the fingerprints. So I'd say 99.9% of the customers use them for book covers.
So, uh, I collaborated with Pat Chupa for our exhibition, our 2026 exhibition, and she used cave papers. And I think everybody is just going to be delighted to see what she created with it.
Mm,
It's not a book cover.
mm. Yeah, I mean, whatever. I hardly ever get to see what happens because people start with the paper. So it goes out in the world, and then it's only by going places like Codex that I find out, what's happened to it.
Okay, I'll send you a picture.
That'd be great.
So Ellen summed it up really beautifully, Amanda. Thank you for your dynamic presentation. I very much enjoyed that you shared logistical details and expanded on how you think about and view the world around you. And I think that's a really important part about how the work gets made. And as you said, infusing it with your spirit, your
Mm,
hands and your intention and your
mm,
knowledge and with your spirit as well. Yeah,
mhm.
and there's wonderful and fabulous.
See a question. I didn't put it up there, but so how long do you experiment before you understand how you proceed to make these magnificent large works, like the screens, for example?
The screens are really complicated because they have to work, each panel has to work individually, and then they have to work with the ones next to them, and they have to work translucent, and they have to work opaque. So it's a little bit too much, really.
Oh,
Uh,
I don't know anybody that works that way.
it's a little bit too much. I do one side, like each individual panel, like you can see behind me, but then the other side is just plain. Like it's just like a plain sheet of paper or something like that. So I don't have to do two sides so much. Um, yeah, it's just people don't really use screens that much in our culture. So, but in Asia, it's kind of amazing how you put up a screen in a room and people just automatically ignore what's going on the other side of the screen.
Mm.
I mean, there's just a lot of respect for that.
Huh.
Even though you can hear people, and yeah,
But people like learn how not to listen to that.
wow,
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
fascinating. Yeah.
The concept of dividing
Hmm.
space.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is it because structures were often created in large single rooms, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, everything's measured by tatami mats. So it's 6 tatami mats, it's 20 tatami mats, whatever. And so people would just roll out their futons and sleep on the floor. And then when they wake up in the morning, roll up those futons and put them in the closet. And then that was their living space.
Mhm.
So if you needed some privacy, you would put up a screen
Hmm. Hmm.
rather than close a door.
And it's interesting that it's movable, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So you could have the option. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow, so much to think about and so much beauty kind of, entered our sight. Um, thank you,
Oh,
and
thank you.
we appreciate your participation in this. I was so happy when you said you could do it.